My beloved brother, my dear sister, you keep asking Allah to open that door again, to let them come back, to bring back what almost became your forever. But have you ever paused to think, maybe the silence is the answer? Sometimes Allah doesn't just close a chapter. He freezes it completely because He knows you would have kept rewriting the story. Even if it was slowly breaking you, you didn't fail. You didn't lose. You simply loved something too deeply that was never written to stay. And now Allah's whispering to your heart, it's time to let go. I have something far better, but first I need to heal you. You keep asking yourself, why can't I move on? You've cried, you've prayed, you've tried to be strong in front of everyone. But when you're alone, the pain returns. And it doesn't make sense to you because time is supposed to heal, right? But here's something most people won't tell you. This isn't just about moving on. This is about surviving something that shattered you. Not on the outside, but deep, quiet, invisible on the inside. When something or someone breaks your spirit, not in one moment, but slowly over time, it doesn't just leave a wound, it leaves a pattern, a memory inside your nervous system, a heaviness in your chest, a quiet replay in your mind that starts every night before you fall asleep. It wasn't just heartbreak, it was emotional starvation. You gave and gave and gave, not because you were desperate, but because your heart was pure, because you saw the good in them, because you believed if you kept showing up, they'd finally see your worth. You weren't naive. You were just loving with sincerity in a world that often doesn't recognize that kind of love. But what you didn't realize is that while you were busy trying to hold everything together, you were the one breaking bit by bit. You stopped asking for things. You stopped expressing your needs. You lowered your expectations again and again just to keep them close, just to avoid being too much. And now it's over. And everyone tells you to move on. But they don't see what you're carrying. They don't feel what it did to your soul. They don't know how it made you question your own worth. That's why you're still here. Not because you're weak, but because your system is still detoxing. Allah is not delaying your future. He's detoxing your past. He's not just removing the memory of someone. He's pulling out the false stories you believed, that you had to suffer to be loved, that you were too much, that silence was normal, that your feelings didn't matter. He's cleansing your heart, drop by drop, from every moment you tolerated disrespect, just because you feared losing them. And this is not something that happens in a week or even a few months. This is not about forgetting. This is about unlearning. Unlearning the idea that your pain was your fault. Unlearning the belief that if you had done something differently, they would have stayed. Unlearning the habit of putting your needs last just to keep someone who was never written for your future. That kind of detox is deep, it's slow, it's quiet, and sometimes it's lonely, but it's necessary. Because Allah doesn't want you to walk into the next chapter with chains still wrapped around your heart. He doesn't want you to love again while still bleeding. He doesn't want you to rise while still hearing the voices that once broke you. So He pauses your life. He delays the next step. He closes every door, not to punish you, but to protect you from repeating the same cycle with a new face. And I promise you, He hasn't forgotten you. In fact, this delay is proof that He remembers you, that He sees your soul collapsing in sujood at night, that He hears the silent du'as you whisper between sobs. He knows you've been through enough, and He's not going to let you carry that pain into the place where joy is supposed to live. So if nothing is moving right now, if you feel stuck, heavy, tired, don't panic. You are not behind. You are not broken. You are not being punished. You are being purified. And when Allah is done with you, when every hidden bruise has been soothed, when every toxic belief has been undone, when your heart finally stops shaking, He will release you. And you won't just move on. You will rise. You will breathe. You will become someone so rooted in peace that even your past will look back at you with admiration. Just hold on. This part is not the ending. It's the unseen rescue. You're not delayed. You're being rewritten from the inside out. And the story Allah is writing for you now will make you forget the one you cried over. You keep saying, I'm stuck. You whisper it in frustration, in your dua, in the corners of your mind when no one is around. You feel like you're in the same place, like life has paused while everyone else keeps moving. Like you're standing at a door that refuses to open no matter how many tears, how many prayers, how many sacrifices you offer. And I want you to pause here and breathe, because you're not stuck. You're being stopped. There's a difference. Being stuck feels like punishment, but being stopped by Allah, that's love. You see, sometimes we are so focused on what we want that we stop seeing what Allah is protecting us from. We chase something with all our energy. A person, a dream, a job, a plan, convinced that it's the answer to our pain. That if we could just have it, the loneliness would go away. The confusion would end. The sadness would lift. But Allah sees something you don't. He sees what's hidden behind that door. He sees the heartbreak, the betrayal, the darkness, the loss that you're too emotionally attached to notice. And so He doesn't just close the door gently. He stands in front of it, firmly, lovingly, protectively. Not because He wants you to suffer, but because He's trying to save you from a suffering you haven't seen yet. You keep begging Him to let it happen, and He keeps whispering, my servant, if you knew what I knew, you would be thanking me for this delay. There are moments in life when Allah has to block your steps, because if He lets you through that door, you won't come out the same. You'll come out broken, bitter, spiritually numb, and He loves you too much to let that happen. So yes, it feels like nothing is moving, but what's actually happening is divine interception. Maybe that job would have taken you away from your values. Maybe that relationship would have destroyed your peace. Maybe that friendship you're still crying over was slowly pulling you away from who Allah designed you to be. And if He's stopping you, it's because He still sees something sacred inside you. Something that needs to be protected. Something you forgot how to protect yourself. So He steps in, not with noise, not with force, but with silence and closed doors and long pauses that make you wonder if He still hears you. He does. He's not silent because He forgot. He's silent because He's guarding you from walking into something that would have drained you in ways you wouldn't have escaped from easily. You are not stuck. You are being rerouted. You are not behind. You are being aligned. And I know it's hard. I know you're tired of waiting. I know it hurts to want something so badly and feel like Allah is the one standing between you and it. But I promise you, if you could see what He sees, you would fall into sujood in gratitude for the very thing that's making you cry right now. Because sometimes the door you want the most is the one that Allah will never let you walk through. Not because He's cruel, but because what's on the other side would have stolen everything you've been trying so hard to heal. So if life feels frozen, if your plans aren't moving, if your heart feels stuck in the same place day after day, just remember, Allah is not ignoring you. He's standing in front of the wrong door until you're ready to walk through the right one. With peace in your heart, light in your chest, and nothing but trust in your soul, you're not stuck. You're being saved. Even now, even if it doesn't feel like it yet, you think you're just missing a person. But the truth is, you're mourning an entire future your heart had already built. A future that felt so real. You could see it, smell it, feel it in your bones. The conversations, the laughter, the house, the dreams. You saw them by your side. You pictured waking up together. You imagined little moments. A quiet morning with tea. Growing old with someone who knew how your soul worked. You weren't just loving them, you were loving the life you thought Allah had finally written for you. And now, it's all gone. Not just the person, but the picture. That's why it hurts so deeply. Not because of what you had, but because of everything you thought you were going to have. And no one around you fully understands that. They say, just move on. They say, it wasn't meant to be. They don't realize you already lived a whole lifetime with them. Inside your mind, inside your heart, in your secret du'as at night. You thanked Allah for them before they were even yours. You made space for them in your plans, in your prayers, in your peace. And now, you're standing in a silent world where every future memory you made has turned into a ghost. That's not easy to let go of. But my dear, listen carefully. Sometimes Allah has to destroy the illusion so you don't end up destroyed by the reality. You thought it was your forever, but Allah saw the cracks. He saw the weight you would have carried alone. He saw the tears you would have had to hide behind smiles. He saw the parts of your soul that would have slowly died while trying to keep something alive that wasn't truly for you. You think you lost your future, but maybe, just maybe, Allah saved your future from being built on something that was already falling apart. You thought it was love, but what if it was only comfort? What if it was only a reflection of a wound you hadn't healed yet? Sometimes Allah gives us a glimpse, not to keep it, but to teach us how deeply we can feel, how sincerely we can love, so that when the one who's truly meant for us arrives, we'll know how to cherish them the way our old self never could. That doesn't mean you didn't love honestly. It means you loved with the level of understanding you had back then. But now, you're changing. You're growing. You're seeing things you were once blind to. And that's painful. Because part of healing is watching the most beautiful story your heart ever wrote get erased, line by line, by the same hand that once held the pen with you. But what you don't see yet is that Allah is handing you a new pen and He's saying, now write again, but this time with me guiding every word. So don't be ashamed of your grief. Don't rush to silence the tears. You're not just heartbroken, you're in mourning. And just like any loss, mourning takes time. It takes gentleness. It takes faith. And one day, you'll wake up and the images in your mind won't sting the same. You'll smile at what once was, because now you'll see why it had to be removed. You'll realize the future you lost was never a loss. It was protection in disguise. Allah didn't take your future away. He took away what would have destroyed your future. And that's not rejection. That's mercy. So breathe, grieve, and slowly, quietly open your hands again to the sky, because something better is coming. Not just better, but healed, pure, written just for you. And this time, you won't have to imagine it. It will be real, and it will stay. there's a certain ache you feel, and you know exactly the one I'm talking about. It's not loud, it doesn't scream, it doesn't even have a name. It's just there, in your chest, in your bones, in the quiet moments when the world goes still. A heaviness, a hollowness, a silent burn that no one can see, but you feel it all the time. Sometimes you wake up with it, other times it visits you when your guard is down, in a moment of peace, in a laugh, in a memory, and you wonder, why won't this feeling leave me? Why do I still feel like I'm breaking even after all this time? But what if I told you that ache isn't your weakness, it's your purification? Because sometimes Allah doesn't heal you with comfort, He heals you with fire. Not a fire that burns to destroy you, but a fire that burns to transform you. You see, when metal is being purified, it's not washed with water, it's melted in fire, because only fire can remove what doesn't belong. And that's what Allah is doing to you right now. He's not ignoring your pain. He's using it as a fire to melt away every false belief, every emotional scar, every unhealthy version of you that you carried for far too long. You thought that relationship defined your worth. You thought your silence was strength. You thought begging was loyalty. You thought pain was part of love. And now it all aches because Allah is pulling it out of you, one tear at a time, one broken memory at a time, one shattered illusion at a time. That ache is not from the loss. It's from the parts of your old self that are trying to hold on while Allah is trying to pull you higher. It hurts because the old you is dying and the new you, the one that trusts, surrenders, breathes freely, is being born. But just like birth, transformation is messy, it's painful, it takes time, and sometimes you don't even recognize yourself in the middle of it. You feel lost, you feel confused, you feel like everything is falling apart. But the truth is, you're not falling apart, you're being rebuilt from the inside. And that kind of rebuilding requires fire. The ache you feel when you remember them, when you look at the places you used to smile, when you scroll past their name and your stomach drops, that ache is Allah showing you how deeply your heart needs cleansing. Not because you did something wrong, but because He wants something better for you. You can't carry this version of you into the next chapter. The one that makes excuses for disrespect, the one that doubts their worth, the one that needs to be chosen to feel complete. So He lets it ache, He lets it sting, He lets the old self scream a little until it finally lets go. And I know it's hard. You want peace, you want relief, you want the feeling to end. But my dear, listen carefully. Sometimes the ache doesn't end right away because Allah isn't done yet. He's still burning away the lies, still softening the edges of your pride, still extracting the pieces of pain that you thought were part of your personality. You are not broken. You are not stuck. You are in fire, holy fire. And when it's over, when He's done, you won't be the same person who once begged to be loved. You won't be the same person who stayed silent just to feel seen. You won't be the same person who let someone else define your value. You will be lighter, clearer, stronger, closer to Him. So don't curse the ache, don't rush the burn, and don't ask Allah to stop it too early, because the old you needs to burn so the real you can rise. And when that happens, you won't just heal, you'll glow. And everyone, including the past, will look at you and realize Allah didn't break them, He rebuilt them. Your future is waiting for a version of you that doesn't chase. You keep asking, when will it happen for me? When will my future begin? When will I be loved the way I deserve to be? And deep down, you're not just tired of waiting, you're tired of chasing, tired of trying to prove your worth to people who never saw it, tired of being the one who cares more, the one who reaches out first, the one who forgives first, the one who explains, justifies, bends and sacrifices again and again just to be understood. And I want you to know, Allah sees it all. He sees how your heart bends so easily, not because it's weak, but because it's soft, because you were never made for surface level love. You were made for something pure, something sacred, something real. But here's the truth, most people won't tell you. The future you keep praying for won't arrive through chasing. It's waiting for you to become the version of yourself that no longer begs for crumbs from people who were never meant to carry your soul. Allah isn't delaying your future. He's upgrading you for it. Because if He gave it to you now, you might ruin it with the habits you haven't healed yet. You might still run after people who don't run after you. You might still confuse attention for love. You might still try to fix someone who doesn't even see you bleeding. And Allah loves you too much to let that happen again. That's why He's slowing everything down. That's why the people you used to chase are falling out of your life. That's why the doors you once banged on with tears remain closed. Not because you're not ready for the future, but because your future isn't ready for the old version of you. The version that still thinks love has to be earned through suffering. The version that still tolerates being treated like an option. The version that mistakes silence for stability. The version that keeps trying to fix what Allah already removed. That's not the version that will thrive in the future Allah is writing for you. The future He's preparing is peaceful, and it needs a peaceful you, not the anxious, overthinking, self-doubting version, but the version who is grounded in tawakkul, full trust in Allah, the version who doesn't chase, because they finally understand, if something is written for me, it will come without pain. And yes, that might mean walking alone for a while. That might mean letting go of the ones who used to fill the silence. That might mean spending nights asking, am I hard to love? But I promise you, you're not hard to love. You're just being loved by Allah in a different way. A way that heals before it gives. Sometimes Allah empties your hands, not to punish you, but to make space. Because what's coming is so much greater than what you were chasing. The right person, the right purpose, the right peace. It will come when you no longer reach out of desperation. It will come when you finally believe, I am not hard to love. I just needed to stop running toward people who didn't know how to hold me. So stop chasing, stop forcing, stop reopening doors Allah has closed. Not because you're giving up, but because you're rising up. And when you become that version of you, the one who waits with dignity, the one who surrenders their heart to Allah before anyone else, the one who trusts that nothing written for them will ever pass them by, that's when the future will begin. Not a future you chase, but a future that recognizes your worth the moment it sees you. And when that day comes, you look back at all the chasing, all the crying, all the confusion, and you'll smile, because you'll finally understand the delay wasn't punishment. It was preparation for something you never had to run after. Because what was yours was always walking toward you. You kept trying to fix it. You kept trying to make it work. You held on to the story like it was sacred, as if your life couldn't move forward until you made that one chapter make sense. And so you stayed. You rewrote the ending in your mind 100 different ways. You imagined conversations, apologies, explanations, all the things that never actually happened. You even prayed, Ya Allah, maybe if I just do this differently, maybe if I try again. But it didn't work. and you started to feel like a failure. Like your love wasn't strong enough. Like your efforts didn't matter. But let me tell you something gently. With love, you didn't fail. You just didn't realize that Allah had already finished writing that chapter. And every time you tried to rewrite it, He froze the page. Not out of anger, but out of mercy. Because He saw what you couldn't. He saw how much of yourself you were losing trying to save a version of your life that wasn't meant to last. He saw how much peace you were sacrificing just to keep an image of what could have been alive. So He didn't let the story continue. He didn't let the door open again. He didn't let the silence break. Because He knew if you kept writing, you would have written yourself out of your own healing. You were so focused on making the story beautiful that you didn't see how broken you were becoming inside it. You begged for another chance. But Allah, in His kindness, gave you something better. A pause, a divine freeze. Not because He wanted you to hurt, but because He knew you would have stayed in something that wasn't evolving just because it once made you feel seen. And that's the thing. When we love deeply, we don't always notice when the story has already ended. We keep turning the same page, hoping the words will change. But the ink has already dried, and Allah has already sealed it. So every time you went back, He stopped you. Every time you tried to reach out, He made it harder. Every time you tried to repair something, He already removed. He reminded you through closed doors, unanswered texts, and a heart that kept feeling heavier. Because He didn't want you to build your future on a story that was only meant to teach you, not carry you forever. Some people are chapters, not books. Some moments are bridges, not destinations. And some love stories were only meant to teach you how to love yourself and trust Allah more than you trust your plans. You see, you weren't just holding on to a person. You were holding on to hope. You were holding on to potential. You were holding on to a version of the story that only existed in your dreams. But Allah writes in truth, not fantasy, not potential, not what if. And He only continues the stories that lead you closer to your peace, not your destruction. So if your chapter feels frozen, if no matter what you do, it won't open again, stop blaming yourself. Stop thinking you did too little or too much. Stop trying to rewrite what Allah has already ended with wisdom. He froze it because you kept trying to edit something that no longer belonged in the final draft of your life. You were writing in pain, but Allah wants to write your joy. You were writing with desperation, but Allah is preparing a story that flows with ease. And the moment you put the pen down, the moment you say, Ya Allah, I surrender this chapter back to you, you'll feel the weight begin to lift. Because moving forward isn't about forgetting. It's about trusting that the author of your life, He knows how to close a chapter, even when your heart still wants one more page. And one day, you'll see why it had to end the way it did. Not because it was meaningless, but because it served its purpose. It made you softer. It made you wiser. It made you turn back to Allah. And that alone means it was never wasted. You say you feel lonely, but this isn't just loneliness. It's a silence that feels heavier than any noise. A quietness that doesn't just sit in the room, it lives in your chest. It shows up in the middle of conversations. It follows you into crowded places. It whispers to you in the moments when you finally sit alone and everything feels like too much and not enough at the same time. And you start asking yourself, why did everyone leave? Why is no one checking on me? Why do I feel invisible in rooms where I used to feel chosen? And it hurts because part of you misses the noise. even if it was fake. Part of you misses the people, even if they drained you. Part of you misses the attention, even if it was inconsistent, one-sided or conditional. But what if I told you this loneliness isn't a punishment? What if the emptiness you're feeling right now is actually Allah's way of pulling you out of something that would have quietly destroyed your soul? Because sometimes it's not the loud betrayals that break us. It's the slow bleeding, the daily disrespect, the fake smiles, the friendships that secretly compete with you, the relationships that rob you of your self-worth, drop by drop, until one day you don't even recognize yourself anymore. And Allah sees that. He sees the people you still love, even though they hurt you more than they healed you. He sees the spaces you keep returning to, even though they stopped feeling safe a long time ago. He sees the way you keep shrinking yourself just to be tolerated by people who were never designed to carry your heart. And so He removes them one by one, quietly, without warning, not to punish you, but to protect you, because He knows what you don't. He knows what they say about you when you're not in the room. He knows how your spirit is treated when no one's watching. He knows the energy behind their smiles and the weight they add to your chest every time you try to please them. So He steps in, and suddenly it's just you. The calls stop, the invitations disappear, the conversations dry up. You start feeling like everyone walked away at once. And yes, it's painful, but my dear, it's also divine. Because if Allah didn't pull you away, you would have stayed. You would have kept explaining yourself to people who refused to understand you. You would have kept waiting for love in places where your presence was only ever tolerated. You would have kept betraying your own soul just to keep people around who weren't meant to stay. That's not loneliness. That's Allah separating you from what was slowly poisoning your growth. Because growth doesn't happen in noise. It happens in quiet. It happens when there's nothing left to distract you. When there's no one left to impress. When you finally sit with your soul and ask, who am I when I'm not being drained? And it's in that moment, when you're stripped of everyone you once leaned on, that you finally start leaning on the one who never left, Allah. Because He was always there, but you were too surrounded to hear Him clearly, too distracted to feel Him deeply. So He emptied the room so you could hear His whisper again, the one that says, you don't need them, you need me. You're not being abandoned. You're being reintroduced to your fitrah, the pure, uncorrupted version of you that doesn't chase, doesn't beg, and doesn't break for people anymore. And yes, the nights might feel heavier now, but soon you'll realize that peace is not found in people. Peace is what enters when Allah removes the wrong people from your space. One day you'll thank Him for the silence that taught you everything noise never could. You'll thank Him for the loneliness that exposed who was truly meant to be part of your life and who was simply passing through your test. And you look around at your new peace and realize that what felt like loss was actually protection in disguise. Allah didn't leave you alone. He just left you alone with Him, because He knew that version of you, the one who walks with Him, is the strongest version of all. That memory, it just won't leave you, right? You try to distract yourself, try to move forward, try to stay busy, focus on your goals, pray harder, smile more. But when it gets quiet, when the lights go out, when the world slows down, it returns. That same moment, that same sentence, that last goodbye, that silence that said more than words ever could. It plays again and again, not like a memory, but like a wound that hasn't closed. And you wonder, why can't I stop thinking about this? Why does it still hurt? Why can't I move on even though they did? And the answer is simpler than you think. You don't need closure from them. You need closure with yourself. Because it's not just about what they did. It's about what you did to yourself. Because of what they did, you keep remembering the memory. Because deep down you haven't forgiven yourself. You haven't made peace with who you became during that time. You haven't healed the part of you that tolerated too much, that stayed too long, that silenced your needs just to feel seen, that kept believing